You're listening to WCEG Network. We are the worldwide empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Please log on to WCEGTalkRadio.com. You can watch us live on your smart TV, on the Roku cable channel, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and now Fanbase and Blue Sky. So please search for WCEG and, of course, subscribe on all social media platforms. Greetings. I am Anthony C. Aiken, along with co-host for the show and my good friend Herman Anderson. And we will be with you for the next hour with a very exciting guest. Again, please download our free WCEG mobile app. Alexa, play WCEG Talk Radio and listen to WCEG on any of our 12 podcast distribution platforms. Of course, last but not least, I must give you our disclaimer. The topics and opinions are those of the show host and guest and not that of WCEG Network. Again, thank you for your continued support. Herman, hello. How you doing, my friend?
Good afternoon, my friend, Brother Anthony Aiken. We welcome everybody that's listening today and watching us on WCEG Network, Veterans Today. If you're listening, ask a friend, a neighbor, text them, ask them to join in with us also. We are here with another episode to empower the community and provide information to our listeners regarding veterans, helping veterans, and veterans helping families. So
Herman,
let's get started.
that's awesome because that was a good segue because when we said we speak truth into the community, man, do we have an outstanding guest today. This guest, I'm not going to tell you too much about his background. I don't want to steal his thunder, but I can tell you when he comes on, you will be empowered, you will be enlightened, and you will be able to hear true stories in regard not only to his background, but his work with the federal government and how he's assisted veterans all around the world and the work that he does. But before that, let's just give out a little information to our friends, because the number one thing right now, I think, Herman, and what's real good for me is that DD Form 214. And why is that so important? There's so many veterans that are passing on. And a lot of them don't have that copy of that DD Form 214.
Well, actually, it's very timely because I had two issues this week where, sadly, it was funerals and the family needed a copy of the DD 214 for the burial services and for the veteran spouse and family to get the VA benefits. So the DD 214 is important. It's also important that your family members know where you have it.
Well, I have mine on my cell phone. So,
yeah.
So, when the good Lord says time for you to come on home, son, and my wife has my code to get on my phone anyway, so she'll be able to pull it on up. But I mean, in retrospect, that's a very serious thing that they need to know. So, Herman, why don't you tell them how they can get it?
Well, the best way to get it is depending. Each state has Department of Veteran Services. Let's start with Georgia. If you're in Georgia, you can get it through the Department of Veteran Services. I think there are 13 offices in Metro Atlanta and 30 more throughout the state. And there is the 1-800 number that I will, a Georgia Department of Veteran Services number that I will give you later. And nationally, go to the Veteran Archives and request your DD Form 214. And there is one way to do it is call 1-800-1000 and request your DD Form 214 on an automated system. Other
I tell you
ways
what,
to do it is to actually uh, uh, fax it in, and we'll provide the information later.
I really wanted to key into you because you've done such yeoman work with your nonprofit, Veteran Helping Veterans, and excuse me, and I know you've helped many, many veterans and their families, in addition to myself, of getting that particular piece of paper, which is extremely important, as you said before, for burial, for VA loan, for schooling. Um, you just name it. It's just a valuable piece of paper that
Well,
they
it's
should have.
excuse me for interrupting, but it's also important just to get started. If there are veterans out there of all ages that have not applied for their benefits, period. So if we were all provided one when we separated from the military, but if you don't know where it is, if you have lost it, a part of the intake process to get into the VA system is a copy of your DD Form 214, and there are a process to request it. For an example, when a VSO does your first request for benefits, whether it's the American Legion or the DAV, whatever organization or whatever individual, part of the intake process is a copy of your DD 214, and the other one is your medical records, Anthony.
Man, I tell you what, you're the man. You're the encyclopedia of the DD Form 214. So it's important. But I need to let our guests know that shortly we're going to have a very interesting guest. That's Honorable Larry Turner, the former Inspector General of the U.S. Department of Labor. And why is that important? Well, I tell you what, with the new administration in place now, many of those federal agencies that were big on supporting the DEI programs and supporting veterans and their families, disabled veterans, are being cut. Personnel are being cut. And believe it or not, he'll tell you what's the latest going on with him and those departments. So that's Honorable Larry Turner. I am just excited that Herman, I'm telling you what, man, we've been having some superstars on our show this year.
Yeah, we have upgraded our people that we have,
Oh,
and
yeah. And you know
that's
why?
great. That shows you that what the military is all about.
But
Each year we get better.
not only that, Herman, but it shows you the value that the Veteran Talk Radio Show has in this country. That people are listening, people are interested, people love and understand what they're hearing, and they want to be part of that. So that, as we go into our almost 9 years now?
I think we're close to 10.
Close to 10 years. And I have sat down and thought about the number of guests that we've had since our conception, and it's just been amazing, truly amazing. People from around the world being our guests on the show. So, we do this because we have a passion. We love it. And from that, other people see it and they want to become part of it. So I got to salute you too, Herman. I mean, the things that we've done
Well,
and
I salute you. And what makes me feel good, and when we get results, when we get calls from people in Boston, or we get calls from people in Chicago that had been knuckleheads for 7, 8 years, and they listen to us one Friday, and it kind of motivate them to go back and keep pursuing their benefits.
as usual, you're always on point. I really appreciate it. Not only you, my brother, but my double brother. And it's just tremendous. So we're excited that we're able to let people know about the DD Form 214. And the other thing of importance is now with this new administration in place, and we're seeing a reduction of people, especially in the VA scenario, They need to really be keen on what they're trying to do to get their compensations and benefits. By that, I mean they need to follow the blueprint. They need to follow the plan of operations because if they don't, woo! And listen, our
Well,
guest is there, so let me admit him. Let's see. Honorable Turner, hello.
Good morning, Tony. How you doing?
Hey, sir, how are you? We can't see you. Yeah, there you are. There you go. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm trying to come on my laptop, having a little problems connecting, but so that's why I just went on the phone while I was trying to get there.
Well, no problem. I hope your pants didn't get too short on your legs because we have been talking you up so much, and we're so excited that you've taken time from your busy schedule to be with us on this show today. So I'll tell you what, can you get your camera a little regulated? Because we're just seeing
Yeah.
there we go. Oh, you were trying to hide that suit. Look at him. That's the way, outstanding look, sir. How you doing?
Not bad, not bad at all. I'm actually in North Carolina, visiting my mom who was in the hospital, so she's better. So
Oh,
that's good
wow.
news.
Well, we're even more honored that you're taking the time away from mom. So, Herman, why don't you welcome our guest right there?
good afternoon, sir. My name is Herman Anderson. I'm the co-host along with Anthony Aiken. I'm a Air Force veteran and welcome you to the program. Very interested in you providing us some information that will help us empower the community and empower veterans and their families.
Well, thank you for your service and thanks for having me.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's get right into it. As I said to you earlier, we're not going to read your bio because it's too many pages. So, what we'd like to do is allow you to give a little background introduction on yourself, and then we'll delve into the program with some questions for you.
Sounds good. Well, I'm a native of Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I was born to a 17-year-old mother, and I was very shy growing up. And we moved to Hampton, Virginia. So that's where I spent my high school years in Hampton. And as a senior, my parents were trying to get me to go to West Point. But I had no intention of joining the Army at that time and didn't want anything to do with it. So I ended up going to Morgan State in Baltimore. And at Morgan, my first semester, I didn't participate in ROTC because again, I wasn't sure that's the route that I wanted to go. However, my second semester, I decided to double up, and that's how I got involved in ROTC. And so, as I mentioned, I was an introvert in high school. I didn't participate in anything, but going to Morgan, I decided I was going to change things. And that's when I got into ROTC, which helped with on the leadership side and ran for class president and did several other activities to include pledging the fraternity. I graduated from Morgan and went into ROTC as a second lieutenant, quartermaster corps. Spent 24 years in the Army. After my 24 years in the Army, then I decided to pursue financial planning, which was my initial goal. But realizing that they were treating me as a second lieutenant and I had responsibilities, they just weren't paying enough. So I was still on terminal leave. And I said, well, you know what? People will pay me for what I already know.
Yeah.
So I became a contractor for a couple of years before actually trying to get on with civil service. And so did 20 years in civil service, starting with Army Installation Management Command, where I was the executive officer. And there was, at that time, was a kind of developmental position. I was thinking with my retirement pay and give me a little GS-14 job, I would be good. However, the job that I ended up taking as the executive officer for the SES, who was executive director for Army Installation Management Command, was a developmental position. So it was a position that they brought me in as a 14, and they said, and it could get to a higher. Well, I didn't hear the higher part because I'm just thinking, 15 if I'm lucky. And so anyway, he let me shadow him. I went to a lot of training to include Harvard Senior Service College. And after that, then they decided I actually, after going to Senior Service College, they brought me back. And that's when they started an IG at Installation Management Command and asked me to be the GS-15 deputy. They decided to practice San Antonio. My wife and I decided we weren't going to move. So I was actually sitting on the RIF list for a year while I was looking for a job and ended up getting one with DODIG. and stayed 2 years there before becoming the Deputy Inspector General for the Department of Labor, and the last 5 years as the last 3 years as the Inspector General. So that's kind of my story.
What a story.
Yes.
I mean, Herman, what a story. He didn't even have aspirations to become an Army. He tried to decide what he wants to do. But you know what? When God has it for you, and nothing you can do to stop it.
I agree.
It's just on his time, and you're being obedient. And we're so happy that you were obedient. And Herman.
Well, I would just like to say also that our guest last show, and a lot of our guests decided to take the route of joining ROTC in college, and that's a great indicator of, and it's also an indicator of, to me, to young people that today to consider joining the ROTC as an option.
Well, I agree with you, and I think it made a difference in my life. The strange thing about it is I turned down an ROTC scholarship because I didn't want to be obligated for 5 years, and ended up staying 24. So who knows?
Yeah, it's this. I went to school with no money. My folks didn't have the money, but when the ROTC scholarship opportunity came along, and this show up over at Wilcox D on a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, after as a sophomore partying all night and pledging. 9 o'clock was like, what? But I made it over there, and I passed the exam. It was a really enjoyable exam, and I accepted the ROTC scholarship. And it was the goal was to not have my parents worry about me staying in school. So we're kind of parallel, that kind of thing. So I tell you what, why don't we delve into what you did? I heard our listeners heard that you ended up being the IG of the Department of Labor. Tell our listeners, what is that? What did it entail for you being in that position?
Well, I've been asked that question a lot. Matter of fact, when I became the Inspector General, a lot of my family members were still trying to figure out, you're an inspector, you're a general, what are you? and so the example that I like to give is if you've ever have a home built, and when you're dealing with a builder, the builder is supposed to build the house to code that you agreed on. But occasionally the builder will look for shortcuts, will maybe not give you the windows that you wanted, or less quality because they're trying to save money. Or maybe they promise you a 3-car garage, but it's only 2. Or maybe there's a code violation that you're completely unaware of, but and you just don't know enough about houses to figure that out. So what occasionally people will do is they will hire an independent investigator, and an inspector, more or less. And that person, what they will do is that they will ensure that the builder builds to code, to ensure that you're not getting shortchanged on your investment. Maybe there's a safety violation that if you didn't have someone looking after your best interests, they would figure out or find out. And so that's kind of what IGs do. IGs, we are what we call the watchdog. So for every department in the government, all 74, there is an inspector general. And our job is to be the eyes and ears for the American public. So if DOL has a program, our job is to make sure that it's operating effectively and efficiently. So therefore, the taxpayer is getting their money's worth. So that's kind of what inspector generals do.
Wow, that's interesting. Do you save the government any money in that position?
Yes, we did. Matter of fact, when I became the acting IG 5 years ago into now, we saved the government about $74 billion in cost avoidance. Yes, because 74 for B.
With a B?
With a B.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. And, a lot of it took place 5 years ago when we went into the pandemic with COVID, and unemployment insurance fraud was very rampant. And we were responsible for that program as far as oversight. The government provided Department of Labor and the states with $888 billion, close to $1 trillion for benefits for that program. And the first 9 months of that program, it was self-certification. So what does that mean? That means it was the honor system. So if people claim they had a small business, maybe a Lyft business or Uber, they would apply for the money. And in some cases, they may not have had that, but all they had to do was just apply for the money. They didn't have to show proof. And so what happened was a lot of the criminals started realizing this was an easy way to exploit the government's funding and start doing multiple claims. So for instance, you may have somebody that may claim 25 different claims in 25 different states and using stolen social security numbers to do so. And that is how that money all of a sudden started really adding up.
So let me ask you this: you saved the government in uh, the end, the people on the end that have trying to get the money and not really meet the requirements. Are those people individuals, small businesses, or organization, or who are they?
There really it's some of all of those that you mentioned. Sometimes you may have one individual who and we did find several times a few individuals just by themselves just either had social security numbers from a family member, a friend, or whatever, and then you had organized crime also exploited that. And to give you another example, we had about $47 billion in potential UI fraud, unemployment insurance fraud was stolen. And there were 4 categories, and our data analysts helped us identify those 4 categories. And those categories were deceased individuals, social security numbers, that of federal inmates, multi-state claims, and mysterious emails. So miscellaneous emails that I say. Those are emails that you're looking like, there's not a person really attached to those, or they have a strange looking, nomenclature. So anyway, and that was just 47 billion that we found. I testified about a year ago that there was 191 billion dollars in improper payments attributed to that fund.
So my takeaway from that is, as individuals, as veterans, as people, we need to be very careful who we allow to have our Social Security number, our EIN for our nonprofits and for your business and things of that nature.
Yes, I would suggest that, and also every so often check and make sure that your Social Security number is good. Because I even got someone, believe it or not, as the IG for the Department of Labor, somebody stole my information as well. And one day my agents came to inform me that my information had been compromised, that somebody had actually stolen my information and applied for UI fraud.
Wow. So you said billion. Were you successful in retrieving all of that money? That was
not all of it.
Not all of it?
Not all of it. Matter of fact, a very small fraction of it. Because what happens is once that money goes out the door, it is hard pulling it back. Because several reasons for that. Number one, some of the people that have stole the funds, they are some of the people that's riding around with new cars. They're doing vacations. And they're going to Vegas and they're gambling. And so what happens is a lot of time, by the time they're caught, that money is already been spent. And sometimes even when we do charge someone, it takes a while to go through the court system before they're actually convicted. So it takes. So that's why even when I spoke before Congress, that was the thing that I tried to impress upon them, that you need to be proactive in trying to stop this kind of fraud.
Well, one focus of our show is always for the veterans, the disabled veterans, and their families. How did the Department of Labor assist those individuals with either employment opportunities, assistance for whatever?
Well, first of all, being a vet myself, I'm always interested in hiring vets because I know that they are going to do a good job. So throughout our workforce, and we've always, tried to bring vets in because we know we're going to quality individual. We're going to a person that has served the government, and we want to reward them. But I would say a lot of government agencies have done that in the past. I mean, that's why I'm so concerned about what I see now with them letting a lot of vets go, because it's just really shameful.
Well, that kind of leads us, Herman, into the thing you and I talked about, the new Trump administration. Now, I know you told me a story, and you've been in New York Times, you've been all over social media sharing the story. Do you mind elaborating to our listeners what I call sort of like D-Day for the Inspector General community, and what's going on with that right now?
So, as you've heard, I'm sure, I, along with 19 other inspectors general, were fired on the 24th of January. We received a email at 9 o'clock at night that basically told us that our positions were being terminated because the current administration was changing priorities. And so that was kind of shocking to all of us, because you would think that we, the inspectors general, would be a part of anything where you're looking for fraud, waste, and abuse. But the fact that so many of us were let go, it made us believe that there was additional or other reasons that they were doing. I think they were just really a power purge that they were trying to get rid of the watchdogs. And so because of that, we felt like it was an illegal firing, because according to the law, they're supposed to give inspector generals 30-day notice to Congress if you want to fire an inspector general, as well as you have to provide reason why they're being fired. And normally that's because they have been dereliction in their duties. And so this was something that during the first Trump administration that was put into effect, because to avoid this, what happened happening, but he ignored that and decided to fire the inspector generals anyway. So we're at a point now of where we filed a lawsuit, and that lawsuit is still ongoing.
Herman, is that a story? An email saying you're fired?
Yeah.
I'm sure that was devastating.
Well, I think it was more surprising and shocking than anything else, because, we were treated like we would be treating a criminal. And even now across the government, they are doing the similar things. As you know, USAID, they gave the staff 15 minutes to get all of their belongings, which is just, to me, cruel and harsh. Someone that may have been working there for 20 years, and they got pictures hanging on the wall, and they got 15 minutes to grab their stuff. And I don't understand what the urgency was for that. And then, matter of fact, not only that, but I didn't find out that Monday that I was actually taken off the payroll that midnight that Friday night. So that was all, that was surprising to us as well. And didn't have access to a lot of my professional papers, like I've done classes or mentoring sessions, and the notes from that I didn't have access to. And it was so bad that I didn't even have a copy a day after I'd been fired. I couldn't even get a copy of the email that fired me. because and I actually was able to get it through the FOIA process. Imagine that.
Wow. And you're at one of the highest level positions in the federal government, an IG, Inspector General. So that doesn't only include the Department of Labor, but it should include the VA. What are some of the other agencies that were affected that veterans get support from?
Well, it was 20 IGs, and let me just tell you, this is who's in the IG community. They are the biggest: DOD IG, VA, HHS, Small Business Administration, the Department of Education. All these inspector general were fired, and so there was like 250 years or more of experience that walked out the door. And it has devastated the OIG community because it's basically dismantled that. In addition, and be honest with you, Tony, it was really a good deal for the American public, and people don't understand that. And I give you an example of what I'm saying. Most IGs like myself, once you become an IG, your pay is frozen. So I haven't had a pay raise in like 5 years. And you don't get a bonus because you're the agency head. So you're the person that actually approved bonuses. And since you don't have a boss, the IG is independent. There's nobody over the IG to include the secretary. So I actually believe that the American public, they were getting a discount deal on all these people that were fired, because really they were probably making about $100,000 less than they would get on the outside.
Wow.
So
And then go ahead.
going forward, with you guys having the lawsuit, what's your take on uh, stopping the situation from continuing and to disrupt our entire system?
Well, to me, that's a good question. I'm not sure where we're headed because so much has happened in the last 2 months. And some of what is happening gets lost because, it's like one day you hear about the IGs getting fired, the next day is somebody else, the next day is somebody else. And then the only people that can change some of that and stand up is Congress. And Congress so far has not done that. Even before this firing, I had gotten, letters from congressional members telling me not to resign. They're hanging there that they had our support. And some of those Congress members have not stood up for the IG community as we thought they would. And right now, I don't know if you will ever have an independent, nonpartisan position again, because it appears to me that the attempt was to get rid of the watchdogs so that the administration don't have to have someone watching over their shoulder, maybe replace the IGs with someone that's partisan. So that's the concern that we would have. And I was telling some friends, and I think that the 24th may have been the last time for a while that there was a powerful group of people such as the Inspector General.
You mentioned something about Congress and they're being sort of like lackadaisical about this. I know that the sitting president at the beginning had all of these executive orders uh, lined up for signature. And I guess it would call it the dismantling of the federal government or anyone that challenged him in regards to what's right and what's wrong. Uh, Now we're seeing, and I'm wondering if it's affecting you and your group, that a lot of the federal judges are denying or revoking or changing or reverting some of the executive orders that were signed by the sitting president. How would that affect the IGs that have left, and how would that affect the other federal agencies about the opportunity not only getting jobs back, but getting the agencies back?
I don't think what the judges are doing right now affects the IGs because that's why we have a separate lawsuit, because we're appointees. So I think there's a little bit difference than the regular GS employee. I think that's one of the differences. But even with them, the biggest challenge you face and they're facing, and I think you may have heard it on the news the other day, is that some of their jobs and their offices have been closed. So what do they go back to? And so I think in some cases, the administration will put them on admin leave but a lot of times and that's the problem when that happens. This group of people get fired and you go through the court system and it takes a while for the courts to act. And I think the administration kind of knows that. So it takes a while. So if you fire somebody today, sell their office, lease it to somebody else, completely shut it down, what do they go back to? And that is part of the problem.
Gosh.
I think that is, and my concern is, in I agree that Congress is has a big role to really to do something about this. Because my take on it, we need to stop and not let it go on for the next 2, 3, or 4 years. It needs to be, as they say, once things are broken, you can't put them back together.
Yeah.
again, but it's kind of like a wildfire. You just can't let it keep burning either.
No,
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
no.
Yeah.
Well,
Another point that I want to make, and I don't think the American public understands, there's in this false narrative that the federal employees don't have anything to do, or they're not reporting to the work, and that is so inaccurate. When I first came to Labor IG 10 years ago, we had maybe a handful of employees, 3 or 4 or 5 that were not really that were kind of maybe problem kids. And so what they would do is move them from one office to another. And what I decided to do was end that. My thing was that we need to address this right away, and we're not going to give somebody one office another person's problems. We're going to deal with this, and we did. And so we ended up getting rid of those employees. And so I feel very comfortable with saying that the people that work for Labor OIG now are all great, employees. You may have 1 or 2 that's on the fence, but we have had a great staff and some of the best in the government. And so the other thing too is, and I think people miss out on the fact that when you have an employee, the 80,000 positions that I think they were looking at cutting with maybe VA or somewhere, is that those positions had to be justified one at a time. They had to, you had to be mission needs statements that were created. There had to be job descriptions. There had to be tasks that they would be performing, and at different grade levels. And so throughout then, OPM would approve it. So those 80,000 positions are positions that have been approved one at a time. And I think that's the point that people miss. And here's the other part about it too. You guys are retired military guys. So you understand this. There's no organization that you can go in and make a decision on without first looking into that organization and learning something about that organization.
correct.
You can't do it. And
Yeah.
if you do it, you're not going to be fair in your assessment. And
Right.
I give you an example. I think with what they were doing with money in terms of they were offering people an early out or take X amount of dollars to leave. And what they were not understanding was that if 20 people left, you had no idea where those 20 people worked at. So they could all be working in the same section. And then that section would basically be deadline. And they didn't take any of that into account.
No, it seemed as though they didn't, especially with the USAID, for everyone to leave home on a Friday, and then by Sunday they don't have a job, and Monday they go to work. And I've been to that USAID building in Bethesda, excuse me, and to go there, and the door's padlocked. So
Yeah.
it's excuse me, it's just a steamrolling effect. Now we find that the Department of Education is next. Has already been signed to close the Department of Education and have all that revert back to the states. So, how has this affected the employees of the Department of Labor?
Well, could you hold 1 second and let me turn the device off? I changed devices on you.
Okay. Herman, this is very interesting.
It is very interesting, and it's some good points that he's making. For an example, the position to fill one application at a time, and if you cut out 80 positions, you just can't go back and put 80 people back. You have to go through the hiring process.
Yeah, you gotta go through that process. So
Okay, I'm back now. Sorry.
yeah, great. That's even better. So tell us, how has the Department of Labor been affected by this watchdog?
Well, it has, first of all, my deputy will be performing that role now as the acting IG. And obviously he's good because I wouldn't have selected him if he wasn't. So he's more than capable of holding our organization down, but he's doing 2 people's job. I mean, those are 2 full-time jobs that he's doing. And so to ask that of him and to do it effectively for a long period of time is going to be a challenge. But the biggest thing is that the anxiety that it has created. So how would you feel if you're at a place that you're working and you've given your heart and soul to, and knowing that you could be fired any day? And that's the problem. And let me just go even a little deeper with that. My staff 5 years ago, we were investigating all these COVID-related, fraud, accusation, allegations. Okay, as we were going through this, we went from having 3 people in our hotline to 27. We went from investigating 100, incidents of unemployment insurance fraud a year to 100,000.
Wow.
So I pulled together my staff. We worked jointly with my investigators. I had about 120 special investigative agents. I have about 110 auditors, and my attorneys and my data scientists pulled all of them together to work as a unit to face this problem. We developed a plan, and I asked those folks, and they did, to work hard. We knocked it out of the park. Every month, the White House was meeting with us. The Pandemic Council, Recovery Council, PRAC, was meeting with us as well. And they were really, and both sides of Congress was really, thanking us for the great job we were doing. I asked my people to work hard, and this is what's happening in return, that they are being let go and being treated as though they were the crooks. And so it's hard, and it's hard on people that lose their jobs. Knowing, here's another example I'll share with you guys. So one of the challenges that we were facing when I was there, and not only us, but a lot of agencies, is that we have an aging workforce. The government civil service is an aging workforce.
Correct.
So one of the things that we were trying to do is, build the bench, go back and do some additional recruiting, go to the colleges and let them know what we do. Well, imagine you got a college student who's a 4.0 average student, got a job with the government, been there for 5 or 6 years, want to be a senior leader at some point, and just like that, they've lost their job for no reason. And so the morale is low, not knowing where they're headed for the future. You mentioned my folks. I asked so much of them, and they responded in a positive way, and I feel bad for them because they deserve better.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Herman, we had it easy. We wore the uniform. We didn't have to worry about the sweat.
Well, as you guys both know, even wearing a uniform these days is no guarantee you're going to be treated right and treated with respect, and especially people of color. With this DEI thing they talk about. And let me just say a word on that because I feel like it's important that I do. I hired the best people based on merit. No, because why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't you?
You want the best.
I'm selfish. I want the best people working for me, okay?
Yeah.
What diversity programs do is let you open the pool to give you a better chance to look at a larger sample. But at the end of the day, you're going to hire the best person.
I agree with you.
I think you're going to hire the best person. And also, as you say, as you're recruiting young people and people that's coming into college, into the workforce, all organizations want to have the opportunity to look at all the talent, because that's, in my opinion, there are a lot of young people that are not, organizations are not aware of them just because no one looked at them and gave them an opportunity to show their talent.
Yeah, and that's so unfortunate. Not only that, but one of the things, we had several of our employees that were in a SES development program. They shut that down. Federal Executive Institute is another one. I had a couple of employees that were in that program, got selected to be in the program, by a panel. They get in the program, and one of them was halfway through the program, and they shut it down. And so, as both of you know, as being former military, retired military guys yourself, part of any organization, part of it is to develop your staff. If you can't develop, if you can't train your staff, who's going to replace your leaders?
Right. I totally agree. I'm just wondering now, with the downsizing, the uncertainty, and all the speculations coming out of Washington, D.C., with federal agencies countrywide, worldwide, do you see a slowdown in veterans getting job opportunities with these agencies, especially if they're, disabled or have some kind of handicap?
Well, yes. Let me let me explain something to you. Excuse me. DEI also helps veterans and disabled folks because you're opening up the pool of candidates. So therefore, someone who may have a disability, you know, if someone limits that pool, they're going to look past them. But by opening it up and interviewing more people, you can find someone that may have a disability but can still perform that job.
Yeah.
And so that's where. Let me tell you another thing too that I feel like I want to address while I have this moment. It's this thing where you're just letting people go without really doing any kind of assessment. So that would be for you guys to, all right, imagine this, and I like to break it down for the American public so they understand this. So imagine if you had a car that was $50,000, okay? And so someone tells you, hey, you need to cut their cost in half. You just need to, it's 50,000. We want you to bring that to 25,000. Okay. And if you're not a guy who's an engineer, I know much about cars or a mechanic, and you just somebody who don't know anything about cars, because think about that's what Doge is doing. They don't know anything about Libra OIG. They don't know anything about VA or how they run.
No.
And so then somebody who doesn't know anything about cars at all comes and look at it and say, you know what? I tell you what, this thing called a transmission, this looks expensive. Let's remove it. So you take that out because we got to get this thing down to 25,000.
Yeah.
And then you say, well, okay, well, they got 4 tires. Do they really need 4? maybe, I mean, this sounds silly, right?
Yeah.
But that's what they are doing. They don't really do. They really need 4. Maybe they can do it at 3. And so that's what you have happening in the government right now. You have young kids that may be knowledgeable about IT, and they're coming and looking at an organization that they don't even know and saying, we're going to cut 80,000 jobs, like not knowing the impact of that. I tell you another thing, too, when they say, well, we're going to cut the poor performers. How can you cut up the poor performers if you have not gone and talked to the first and second line supervisors to find out who they are? Okay, so those are things that people don't understand. Even with me being an agency head, I usually have a general idea about how people are performing. But even I wouldn't have to go talk to that first or second line supervisor to really find out. And here's another thing. If you wanted to find out who was performing well in an agency, why didn't you go to the last performance appraisal? Wouldn't there have been like a start point? And so my point is to you, and I don't think the American public understands that when somebody's just making these decisions, not strategically, you guys been former military guys, retired military guys, normally when you go in an organization, what they tell you, your first 2 or 3 months, you don't do anything.
Nothing.
You don't do anything because you'll learn about it. You got to figure this out. Hell, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. I agree.
So that's why it's just to believe. And here's what's even worse. I was doing an interview the other day with New York Times or somebody, I forget who it was, but I said the same point. Our audit teams, it takes us a while to build a good auditor. We don't just grab you out of college and then put you to work for us and say, hey, go perform an audit. We have got to train you in what area that is. Like, for instance, if you were looking at Job Corps, like Job Corps is a program under the Department of Labor. Okay, but there are so many facets to Job Corps. And one of the things that we did an audit on a couple of years ago was Job Corps safety, because there have been incidents where there had been violence on some of those campuses. So we did an audit on that, okay? But when we did the audit, we got people that were familiar with Job Corps because they had audited them before, and we put about 6 to 8 on a team, and that's the team that's going to conduct this audit. The team meets with the department staff for Job Corps. They ask them questions. They perform surveys, and then they go do the hard work of auditing that staff. It takes 9 months to a year.
Wow.
And with that, we're going to give you a written report. And we also give them a chance to look at it because there may be something we missed or something they don't agree with. That's how it takes about a year for an audit. And for some reason, for some kid to do this in 4 or 5 days, not for Department of Labor, across the government. We're not talking, they just made these decisions on the government agency in 4 or 5 days across the government, their entire government agency. Impossible.
Well, I'm concerned for like an organization like Herman. Herman has veterans, serving veterans. And most of them are from the Vietnam era, and they're elderly or more mature individuals now. And how is that going to help, with the cutting of federal workers in the VA system, which not only includes them on the compensation and the benefit side, but also on the hospital side?
Yeah.
How is that going to affect those veterans going to a place, in some places where VA's rating is #1, which means they're poor?
Yeah.
And now they're going to go to a facility that a poor rating, but now has a less amount of staff. Are we going to start seeing an increase in suicide rates? Are we going to now see an increase in homelessness? I mean, this thing has a steamrolling effect.
Yeah, I sure hope not, but I would say that it stands a good chance of some bad results from this decision. Because again, there's two things that bother me. Number one, you just cut numbers. You don't know what staff you're pulling it from. And both of you guys are vets, so sometimes dealing with VA ain't the easiest thing in the world, and they don't always get right back to you.
No.
So you can expect longer wait times. You can expect people not returning your calls, and you can expect those people under a lot of pressure and a lot of stress because they know that they don't have the number of resources that they previously had.
So before we run out of time, let me ask you this question, just your opinion on situation we're in my opinion, we are bleeding. So, as they say in the country, where how can we stop the bleeding? What are your thoughts on how can we stop what these people are doing? And who should that be, Congress or the public or who?
Well, I think it starts with Congress, I believe. I mean, I think Congress is going to have to do more instead of less.
Mm-hmm.
I think Congress is going to have to be that third, level of government that we all of our lives have been taught they would be.
Yeah.
So that's where it starts, and I think peaceful protests and writing your Congress members is probably the thing that I would suggest as a start point.
Now, I tell you what, you have just empowered us and our listeners around the world with some tremendous information. I can imagine the skeptical feelings and attitudes in our nation capital today. People going to work not showing if they have a job anymore, when they're going to get cut, and how's that affecting their job performances, and how's that going to affect individuals that are looking for their services. So, for a gentleman who's not even a former an employee, to have the power to say that I'm going to give you 1 week to talk about your performance, and if you don't get the right wording out, you're fired. It just doesn't make sense.
And that's the thing about it. They have failed in every area of leadership. Leadership is about taking care of people. Even if you wanted to let people go, there's a way to do that. Okay.
Correct.
And first of all, you should be upfront with them why this is happening, explain to them why it's happening. I mean, that's one of the things that I have always taken pride in the military as a government civilian, in treating my folks right and taking care of them and just being upfront and honest. And so those things are not happening from a leadership standpoint. Being a good leader is not mistreating your people who have served you, in a very purposeful and respectful way. And that's what we're seeing happen. People that have, just like when we put our uniform on in the military, at Labor OIG, when we used to hire somebody, I would have them do the oath all over again, because I wanted them to remind them that we are here for the American public and to support the Constitution. And we did that with every new employee because we wanted to remind them that's why we're here.
You said something kind of earlier that kind of struck me, that, you got a phone call, an email, whatever, at 9 p.m. and that you're gone. And then you found out too that your pay was cut. It's done. You're out of the system. So how is that going to affect those DOL and other agencies where you had GS4s up to GS9 who were living on those dollars, and all of a sudden it's cut? So did they have the opportunity, being cut that quickly, to go to say get unemployment coverage or insurance coverage, anything like that? Was any thought into that, how it's going to affect families?
I don't know. I just know, I think someone will be available for unemployment insurance, I would assume. But here it has a, very, very, diversive effect on a family. Think about it. If you just bought a house,
Yep.
and then you found out next week you were being fired,
Right.
and here, let's even make it even worse, but even a realistic situation. What if your spouse also was a government employee?
Correct.
So now you have two sources of income that you were really living pretty good. Now
Well,
you have none.
none.
Okay, so let's even add something else to that. So in addition to doing all that, they have a hiring, government has a hiring freeze on. So you can't even go get another government job. And so those are the situations that families are panicking over right now. I mean, I was fortunate because I'm a retired military guy, so I do have some income coming, and I was at the end of my career, basically. But people that are in their mid careers, in their 40s, late 50s, and that includes some of the IGs, they got kids in college. They get, you don't know what kind of financial situation they were in beforehand, but this could definitely push them over the cliff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why? Because you did your job, you did it well, and you served your country, and the country's not living up to that promise.
Well, I'll tell you what, you've just blown us away today, and our time's getting short, and I'm sure my good brother Herman will close us out today. But I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate you taking time away from Mama. We give our best to your mom in North Carolina and hope everything works well there. But I want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts for taking the time to share wisdom and your knowledge with our worldwide listeners. Herman, why don't you close us out?
Well, we definitely thank you, and part of our logo is we empower the community. We are worldwide. We have people watching and listening worldwide, and your presentation, your information today is for everyone that's listening, and it's for everyone. We are veterans. We specialize in veterans, helping veterans and veterans information. But everyone has a veteran in their family. So this is really, we are really putting this out to the all Americans and everyone else. The situation that you provide this information is grateful, and moving forward, I sure this will help the public, help the voters and everyone make a decision on our government. And that's helpful information that we need. And to our listening audience, and to our founder, Penny Rogers,
Yep.
we want to say thank you. And we will be back in 2 weeks with another program. We thank our guests and for your appearance today. We thank you for all of the information that you have provided.
Yeah, and it's great to have 3 HBCU schools here: Morgan State, Savannah State, and Tuskegee. And all of us served our nation with dignity and honor, because freedom's not free. We all busted our humps. But sir, thank you.
Thank you for the offer, and thank you for the opportunity. And I'm glad I was able to share some of my thoughts. And thanks for you for having this kind of program.
Appreciate you. Well, good night, sir. Good day.
Good day.
Take care.
All right.